talking music, building businesses, and the grit in the journey. We're Skrizz and Adam, and welcome to The Rise.
Here we are, Skrizz and Adam with The Rise. Very excited to say that we are kicking off season 2, and this is episode 1. I'm really excited about this one. Me and Adam had a little powwow yesterday, chatting. And to make a long story short, I think if you are a fan of The Rise, thank you for being a fan in the first place, listening. Aside from entrepreneurial stuff and hustle and grind, one of the biggest common denominators of every episode we've ever, had the privilege of recording was mentioning Kanye West, who was my favorite artist and I believe was Adam's favorite artist. So that just kind of feels like the elephant in the room. Adam and I have been texting. Unless you totally live under a rock, you've heard a new headline every 20 minutes with Kanye West. So we want to talk about that today. And we don't want to talk about it in the sense that there's a million discussions and debates going on. We want to talk about that in relation to The Rise, our kind of theme here. And I think that's going to open up a lot of conversations we haven't had in the first season.
Yeah, absolutely. And first, it's good to see your face again, because I feel like it's been a long time since we've been in the studio together. We were hoping to get back in the studio when during my travels and your travels, but we're again in different parts of the world. But it's good to see your face again. So that's first and foremost. But look, we've had the Kanye tracker. We've both been big fans of Kanye for a long time. And
decades, probably.
What's that?
About 2 decades. He's been doing this for a while. He's had quite a rise.
He has had quite a rise. And obviously, like you just said, everybody's kind of beating the dead horse with what he said. And I think most people can agree that it's not right what he said and what he continues to say. But that's not where we want to focus. Like you were saying, the whole point of this podcast from the start, when we first met now a couple of years ago, when we first talked about doing a podcast together, the thing that was what was most inspiring to both of us was The Rise and how we're both on our own version of The Rise. But the truth is, everybody who's listening to this, and even not listening to this, of course, is on their own journey in their own version of The Rise. And The Rise is not a straight line up. No. There's highs and there's lows, and that's really what we want to focus on today in regards to Kanye and what's been going on in the news.
Totally. And I think I think it's so easy for people to see him say something there really is no debate. It's just inhumane and politically incorrect, and then see him double down and then triple down. It's like we're getting very caught up in the moment where it's like, I think when we first texted, the first thing that came to mind, or the phrase that came to mind for me, was just like, here we are, you and I are, two of tens of millions, if not hundreds of people who idolized his 2-decade rise, which was longer than 2-decade rise, to become what I consider the greatest musical creative of all time. I believe he's more creative and potent than all the Beatles combined. And watching this incredible fall from grace, and it's like you were saying, The Rise is not a straight line up, and we don't know what's next for Kanye West, but we watched a stock reach a record high and absolutely plummet. And then for me, it was like I watched him make these steps and be like, okay, well, he can get himself out of this, and then doubles down deeper. So it's like, I think there's a much bigger picture to this as to what got him here, as opposed, it's more than just where he is now, and also where is he going with this. And I think you and I had a little talk about that last night. It's like that can go so many different ways.
Yeah, some people would say it's rock bottom, and maybe it is. Hopefully it is. But rock bottom, you could still find a way to get even lower than that. And we all hope, not just even from an artist standpoint and looking at the person as an artist, but as a human being, you hope that he can have his own version of the redemption. And we all love, America is really, I don't think it's really even much of a question. It's the entertainment capital of the world. We love movies. We love a great story. And what makes a great movie, what makes a great story is that the rise, getting to that pinnacle, then that drop, hitting rock bottom, but then having the redemption to hopefully end back on the rise. And what we talked about yesterday, what I'm hopeful of is for Kanye, and I don't know how old he is right now. I wish it's something we could do it. Yeah, let's say it's 45. I don't know.
Sure, it's not about right.
I'm hoping that his chapter from 45 until 80 can be his best chapter. And I genuinely believe that it could be, because if he can turn this around, he can have such a bigger impact than he's even been able to have over the past 2 decades. So that's what I'm hopeful of. I don't want to say I'm optimistic of it, but I am hopeful of it.
I think there's a couple things that kind of come to mind. First of all, it's like, who are the most potent speakers towards anti-addiction? People who were addicts. You know what I mean? It's like the fact that Kanye West can rally in the world of anti-Semitism, which sounds crazy that I'm even saying that, but that's like literally what's happening right now. He's like rallying in the world of anti-Semitism. If he can cross that line, and just for the record, I don't know if we've mentioned this, Adam is Jewish and I am Jewish. So we are speaking as two early 30 Jewish, grew up loving Kanye West, which is actually a massive population of people. I think I love your positive outlook on it. It's like the fact that he knows how to play with fire means he has the ability to do an Uno reverse card and have a potency of 10x to shut everything down. I mean, also the total opposite of that could happen too, and he could dismiss his entire audience, his entire whatever, and just rally the surprisingly large amount of people that agree with what he's saying, even though I truly believe he doesn't even agree with what he's saying. He's just saying shit at this point. I mean, that's the 3 ways it goes for me. It goes, he reverses everything. I mean, that would be amazing. Steps away, reverses everything, becomes an advocate for all positive. And on most of his interviews, like the Lex Fridman, he's preaching positive stuff, but he's saying, like, one of the first things on the Lex Fridman things he talks about is we need to ignore all history. And if you know anything about like Israel or like any Jewish league, all they do talk about is we have to remember history. So him saying that is like an instant attack on, it's like we need to know history so we can learn from it. Totally got sidetracked what I was saying. But
you were saying his 3 instances of what could happen.
Yeah, so it's like
he does a total reverse.
He could do a total reverse. He could go super down the rabbit hole and just become Hitler wannabe, which would be weird. But the thing is, he's cut off. Like JP Morgan cut him off. Like, who gets cut off by like a national bank? That's kind of weird. Like, no one in entertainment will represent him. Also, the thing I find surprising is, like, I have friends who've worked with Kanye West. He has a lot of Jewish employees. He has a lot of Jewish collaborators. I find that very odd. Like his full-time engineer for his entire career was Jewish. Like, that's the person who's in the room with him the most. I find that very odd. So, and then what was my third one was, this is the one that came to mind first. I think when we were texting, was that he dies. Like, he loses all his money, he loses all his resources, and he just dies. It's crazy, but a lot of people believe that one.
Yeah, and there's the one that I think is the best for everybody is obviously the first one. And one of my favorite stories, and I don't remember the guy's name right now, so I apologize. But if anyone does a simple Google search, you'll find it. Was it's a black man. I think he's in Indiana or somewhere in the South, and a heavy. It's somewhere in the South. Yeah, I don't know why I said Indiana. I'm thinking of. I just confused 2 different people there, 2 different stories.
Okay.
One is my guy David Goggins, who I think grew up in Indiana near the KKK. Right. This is a different guy. I'm forgetting his name right now. He grew up somewhere in the South, and there was a large KKK presence. And what he did is he set up a meeting with the head of the KKK, and they were in a hotel room together. It was just them 2 for an interview. And what happened, long story short, is this black man and this KKK leader became friends because they just over time they became friends. And because the black man, and I'm pointing this out obviously because black man, KKK, they don't exactly go together, just like Jewish people and KKK don't exactly go together well. But he did a great job of getting to understand the person that's behind the KKK costume. And the more that they got to know each other, the more they realized, hey, we're not so different. We want the same things. We care about the same things. Long story short, that KKK leader left the KKK, and there was hundreds of other members of the KKK that left because of that one black man that said, I want to get to understand you and not just point the finger saying you're a bad person. And because he went into it trying to understand and empathize with that other party, who most people would look at, honestly, I would look at and say, you're evil, you're bad. I don't want to know what you want to say, KKK member. I don't care about what you have to say. But this man, he was a bigger man than me. He let his ego to the side. He just said, I want to understand and I want to empathize with you. And because of that, he helped so many people leave that awful organization and become better people because of it. And that's where I see the hopeful side of Kanye.
Totally.
Where that's why for me, it's like, I don't want to call the guy an awful person, anti-Semitic, this or that, because I genuinely don't actually believe that. I don't think he's a terrible person. I don't think he's actually anti-Semitic. Do I think he's done bad things? Do I think he's done anti-Semitic things? Yes, of course, but I don't think that makes you an awful person. But I think the more that we just point our finger at him and say, you're an awful person, I want to cancel you or shut you out, I think all that does, it forms more of a wall and forms more friction, where instead, how can we just understand this guy better and help?
Good point. I mean, I wondered, this just came to mind. My thought is like, okay, Kanye, first of all, Kanye says an initial statement that's like kind of anti-Semitic. When I heard it, I was like, this really isn't anti-Semitic, whatever. And then he doubles down, he triples down, whatever on it. And we're like, okay, like what is he doing? And then at that point, what happened? Every agency, everyone who was remotely affiliated with him immediately just cut him off. And you're saying like, and it's funny because like, I'm going to try to simplify this as much as possible. The core argument that started this entire thing, I totally agree with, actually. He said his one thing, and I don't know why he phrased it the way he did. He's like, can we take the top 10 contracts in sports, the top 10 contracts in music, top 10 contracts in film, and can we break them down? And we can look, and can we see who's getting fucked, who's not getting, like, he's like, we're all slaves to whatever. And it just so happens at the top of a lot of these things are Jews. So, I think he almost fell into it. I don't think he ever even intended for it to be this anti-Semitic thing at all. So it's like, then it just kind of snowballed into this thing. It's like, I totally agree. Let's create contractual transparency amongst the entertainment business. That's brilliant. We can all learn from that. We can all create a much more incentivizing playing field because we're all earning according to our value. I thought that was great, but instead of anyone really having a conversation with him, I guess other than, and again, I saw the Lex Friedman, Kanye was stubborn as fuck, but like, yeah, everyone just kind of cut him off. I wonder where we'd be, a month later now or 2 months later. I don't remember how long it goes. If we all didn't cut him off, maybe let things cool down instead and kind of revisit the conversation. Kanye is someone who thrives off of the media talking about him. So, I guess he just flew too close to the sun. I don't know.
Yeah, and when your back's against a wall, you just you put your arms up and you start fighting. Yeah. And I think that's the worst place to be. And I looked up Daryl Davis. That's the gentleman I was talking about. So I recommend anyone check out Daryl Davis. Super inspiring story. So check out the legend of Daryl Davis. But yeah, I think that's with everything. Like, none of us are perfect. We've all done stuff to make mistakes, and it's not about the mistake. Like, of course, there's some mistakes you don't come back from. Like, there's some things that if you do it, it's like, I'm sorry. Sorry is not going to do it. Sorry is never going to, get you back on good footing. But I don't think Kanye is there. I think he is in the spot where he can actually inspire so many more people and help create such positive change if he makes that decision to do it. But the problem is, some of our biggest faults as humans, especially when you get to the level that Kanye West is at, is your ego is so damn big where it's so difficult to admit, no, you're right, I was wrong. And it doesn't mean everything Kanye said was wrong. Maybe there were parts of it that were true and they were right. But the overall message, that's where you have to say, I was wrong, I've been wrong, and I need to, rehabilitate, and whatever that rehabilitation takes to go into a complete different direction to make myself better and to make my family better and to make everyone around me better. But that's the toughest part, is the ego.
I think we're watching that happen in real time with Kanye West. I think with the Lex Friedman interview, like Lex's patience, Lex's ability to listen, understand, and like, so much of Kanye's narrative was like this, loving narrative. He just would say things that were wrong, for lack of a better definition, and Lex would explain why he was wrong, and Kanye's ego would obviously inflame at that point in time, and he'd be like, well, whatever, and he would laugh or make a remark or start rapping or whatever, you know what I mean? And it just they couldn't he couldn't look in the mirror and say like, hey, maybe I am crossing a line on this one little thing. You know, my biggest concern and my biggest reluctancy, and I really admire your hopefulness and your positivity, and I feel like I'm shifting in that direction too. You know, if this were, you know, this is the rise, you know, you buy low and you sell high, so it's a good time to buy Kanye stock, I guess.
Amen. Well said.
Not really, but the problem is like it's who wants to talk to a person who's an egomaniac and who loves him enough to help him, and that's kind of the hard part, because I feel like Kanye's probably lacked that for a long time, unfortunately.
Yeah, and even the people that do want it, because I'm sure there are people that want to help him, and there probably are or were people that were giving him good advice, but does he want to listen to that advice? It's for all of us. I mean, look, there's people that give us good advice that we should take, but it's painful and going to be difficult to actually execute on that. Or there's people that give us bad advice. You know, it's like when you're in high school, there's the people that are saying, hey, skip class and smoke weed with me all day. And then there's the people that are telling you, you know, hopefully your parents like, hey, go study, do work, you know, make yourself a better person and go, you know, whatever that might be. Like there's always the good angel and the bad angel, and you got to choose which angel do you want to follow. The good is usually not the easier path, but it's usually the path that's going to give you the better results. Totally.
I'm going to just put this out in the universe right now because I'm feeling it. I might be totally wrong for this. Kanye West, if you are hearing this, you do have two Jewish American entrepreneurs who are big fans of yours. And if you'd like to hop on the podcast and discuss, we believe in you. We're buying low and hoping to sell high. Let's keep the conversation going. We believe in you.
Yeah, I love it. I think there's no doubt. I think there's no doubt. I think he'd probably be upset that you called him Kanye. I think he's like all on the yay train right now.
He's like, I'm a god or something. I don't even know. It's always something new.
Yeah. So anyway, I think for me, I'm not overly optimistic it's going to happen, but I'm hopeful that it could happen. And I just genuinely believe, like we talked about, I was having this conversation with my sister the other day. Oh, yeah. Like I think she's kind of similar to what we're talking about right now. But the conversation I was having with her is what we're talking about right now, which is if he can choose the other side of this, how much better his next chapter can be and how much greater of an impact he can have and how he really could be a beacon of hope. But this is the challenge of the ego.
This is the thing that's like hitting me right now. And it's like, he has one massive blind spot. I mean, it's a whole conceptual blind spot. If he can fix this blind spot, everything will be reversed. It's pretty simple. Okay, I'm thinking about he's failing to realize the impact this is going to have on his children. This is a man who loves his children, and he's failing to realize. I'm just saying, Kanye, if you're listening, you're failing to see your children's point of view on this. I don't think this is an opinion thing. This is a fact. I think any children growing up in America at their age to know their father was sought in this kind of spotlight is a negative thing, period. There's no positive light to it. And then also it's like, again, like I don't believe Kanye's anti-Semitic. I don't believe any of that nonsense. But I do believe when he opens his mouth and says this shit, people who deeply feel that way, which is unfortunately in the millions, suddenly feel validated. I know weeks after that, I went on the like I follow like history meme pages, and like they're talking about, you know, World War II, and the comments are riddled with like Hitler's the GOAT, like stuff like that, like overt. It's like that wasn't a thing a month ago. It's like a thing by the thousands now. So Kanye is failing to realize the impact he's having on others, and I really think that is the fundamental problem. He's not Joe Schmo in Indiana behind a message board.
Sure.
Again. So it's like he's failing to realize his impact on his kids. He's failing to realize the impact he's having on people who he doesn't align with. He might pretend he aligns with. He really doesn't align with. Dude, come down to. I got a show in Dallas next week. Come with me, Kanye. We'll see how it really is. You know.
Yeah.
I said that totally wrong. Dallas is not anti-Semitic at all. I'm just.
Yeah, I don't think you were. We love Dallas.
We love Dallas.
But yeah, that's what I'm overly. I'm excited about what could come from it. And I just feel like with anybody, look, if you point the finger, you tell them they're bad, they're going to be bad. If you tell them that if you listen, if you're open, like I thought the Lex Friedman interview was a really good interview of like, there's a really beautiful conversation, I think, in a lot of ways of just like listening and understanding and disagreeing, but in a respectful way for the most part. But I don't think anything gets accomplished by pointing at someone and saying you're a bad person. And I think because he does have so many people that really do look up to him and aspire to be like him, if he were to choose what I think is the good angel here, he could have such an amazing impact and really could have such an amazing next chapter of his life that could be better than any previous chapter and more impactful than any previous chapter that he's had.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think.
Now,
sorry, was that?
Yeah. What? Unless you have, I kind of want to change the tune a little bit here.
Yeah, change the tune.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I feel like we kind of are on the same page with that. But what I think is interesting about it, though, is the high and the low and hopefully the rise again.
Yeah.
So
the rise, fall, and the redemption.
Exactly, and the redemption using our boy Skrizz.
Season 1 of the rise is the rise. Season 2 is the fall. Season 3 will be the redemption.
I like that. I like that a lot. There you go.
The rise podcast arc.
And by the way, before I get into that too, we did not plan this, but I feel like we might be wearing the exact same shirt right now.
Well, we're gonna do another one this month. Let's definitely keep it seasonal.
Yeah, I like it.
The move.
I like it. But anyway, what I want to talk about with you is have you had a rock bottom feeling? Have you done anything where you're like
me? Yeah.
But something that was you really crushed your ego where you're like, I messed up.
No, not that I messed up, but I felt helpless. Maybe my ego's still too big. I don't think I ever messed up.
Yeah. I think you messed up once or twice. There's got to be something.
Trying to think of that I messed up and rock bottom.
It doesn't have to be rock bottom.
Not a good PR luck. I can't. Nothing comes to mind.
All right, I got one then. I got a pretty good one. So this was in my tech startup days. It was probably 2016, early in my tech startup, right?
Okay.
We were launching our new tech, so we were working hard to get people to sign up for it.
Okay.
And we had a platform of student clubs at colleges, and then we would sell them to employers. It was a marketplace, right?
Yeah.
So I was reaching out to student clubs to get them to sign up.
Of course.
So I had a big mass outreach blast that I was doing. And on this list was a bunch of students from BYU and a couple of other universities.
What's BYU?
BYU, Brigham Young University. It's a Mormon university.
Okay.
So I wrote this email. I was like, I'm going to get a little creative here. So in the subject line, I put sign the F up with a bunch of asterisks. And then in the body of the email, which I thought was funny. And then I was like, hey, I'm kidding. Here's what we're doing. I was all excited about it. I'm like, this is going to be a great email. It's going to hit. I pressed send. Yeah, I pressed send. And then I went from Boston, where I was working, to visit my mother for the weekend. So I drove to New York.
Yeah.
And on the drive home, I pull over to the gas station. I start checking my emails. And I was bombarded with emails about just how bad it was, how off-brand it was, how such a, I'm the worst person. The list goes on and on.
You got responses. I figured they would just not respond.
Oh yeah, I got maybe more response than I ever got through an email, and it was 95% of them were just calling me the worst person ever. So anyway, I felt like shit. I felt sick going back home, whatever. So
that's not a mistake though. That's an honest mistake. It's definitely an honest mistake. You took an ambitious risk and it failed. That's business. I wouldn't.
Of course, it's business, but you're young in your career, and you're trying to build a brand with you need these college students to love what you're doing and believe in you.
Okay, yeah.
But anyway, next morning I sent an email apologizing to that same group, and long story short, I got the best response. They're like, "Oh, that was great. Awesome. Now I'm really into your company, and I'm going to sign up and blah blah blah." So anyway, it was a really good on a teeny tiny scale. How if you do mess up, which it was a mistake, I should have been smarter about it, especially knowing who I was reaching out to. But by having a genuine apology, those same people that wanted to throw rocks at me were like, hey, you know what? I forgive you. It's all good. Don't worry about it. And that's kind of where I get with the Kanye stuff. It's obviously it's on a million times larger scale. But look, if he's genuine, if he apologizes, if he has a chance to right the ship, and it won't be that difficult to right the ship.
Yeah. I mean, nothing's coming to mind right now, but I am experiencing a deja vu type of situation where it's I'm in a text conversation or an email conversation. I'm like, I can be an asshole and defend myself, and this is only going to get escalated more, or I can just be like, I apologize. I think there's a couple of those recently for me on a much smaller scale. I was just like, I apologize. Not a problem. What can we do to fix this, resolve this problem? You know what I mean? And it's then everyone's so friendly all of a sudden. You know what I mean? Yeah.
It's humility is
easier to just resolve the problem.
Way easier, but humility and ego are tough. And for me, it's a battle every single day. But especially I can't even imagine being at Kanye's scale. That dude has done everything he could ever dream of and then some. He's got access to anything he could ever want. He's got the whole world talking about him. So I can only imagine how difficult it is for him to drop his ego. But again, like I'm optimistic where if he can change his tune, there could be such a bigger and brighter future than where he's at right now and where he's ever been.
If I were to make a prediction as to if your scenario plays out, where we buy a rock bottom, we sell at the top, he flips the script, he goes out, rallies in God's name for all humanity. I think he's done things like this in the past on a much smaller scale. He's not gonna like apologize. He's gonna change his narrative. He's gonna completely change his narrative and say that was the plan the whole time. He's gonna do something like that. He's gonna get backlash for this is my prediction. Again, I could be totally fucking wrong. I feel like he's going. Does that make sense? He's going to change the narrative, something about
without apologizing.
But he's going to do the right thing without apologizing. That
without admitting
like
wrong, basically.
That feels like the Kanye thing to do. And because he has, I mean, again, no recording artist has a cultural impact like Kanye West. None, period. None. No one comes close. Mm-hmm. Also his ability to earn. When he takes a creative idea and earn, whatever, no one has that. So he is a big asset. If he were to change his narrative, he is a big asset, and I would like to believe people would take him back. Looking back at the timeline, it was Ari. What's his name? Ari Emanuel. It's William Morris or CAA. I don't remember. But that was the one who he was the whistleblower or whatever that just kicked the whole thing off. It's like, can we get back to that tier of people to forgive him? That's a coin toss to me, and I think it's a huge deciding factor.
Well, hopefully, because they would be the ones where if Kanye does actually do what we're hoping he will do, those are the people that you then need to say yes, I accept your apology and you're back in. Because if they don't, they'll mess the whole thing up.
That's exactly what
you need. Both parties, just like in the Daryl Davis KKK example. Both parties, Daryl Davis and the KKK, had to accept understanding each other and listening to each other. If only one party does, it doesn't work. And that's my prediction is, and what I'm hopeful for, because Kanye, the people he says he looks up to and the people he even is crazy enough to compare himself with, like the story I told, back in one of the earlier episodes about Kanye storming into my dad's meeting at Power 105 in New York and saying the only person, more talented than me is Jesus Christ. Like,
it's great.
He's always been like that.
Yeah, no, he's been like that long before he's famous, supposedly.
Right, exactly.
Dancing on tables and shit.
Like he compares himself to Jesus. He compares himself to like MLK and Mother Teresa and those types of people where if he really does buy into that, if he really, like it says, you know what, I am not being that, but I actually want to become that or do everything I can to live up to to how they lived, then he would turn the tide. And if he does turn the tide, which I think he will, I think his best is yet to come. And I'm optimistic. And that's my prediction is I do think he will change. I don't know when it's going to be. It might be 5 years from now. Maybe it's a year from now. But I think if he does see the light and he can admit he's wrong, I think it'd be a great thing, not just for him and for anti-Semitism, but for so many other people and leaders that refuse to admit they're wrong, because he's not the only one. He's not one of one. There's dozens, hundreds, thousands of people that are leaders, high profile people that make mistakes, probably know they're wrong, but refuse to admit they're wrong because their ego is too big. So hopefully he can actually be a great leader, not just in saying, hey, anti-Semitism is bad, but in so many other areas where people can look at him and say, you know what, I'm not living up to the best version of myself too. So anyway, that's what I'm hoping for. That's what I'm predicting. And
Kanye can make a change. Someone with incredible authority, incredible impact can just make a change, say they were wrong, and do what is ultimately right. Before we kick it off, there's one thing that came to mind. I don't know if there is, and I've seen no comment about this or no one said anything about this. Isn't there a Kanye West song? It feels like it's not his song. Like he's on someone else's song, and he has like a verse where he talks about is like something about how like African Americans should study how Jewish people taught their children to manage money. If we did that, we'd be the wealthy. So he has some verse where he mentions that. I can't remember what it is, but I'm like, this is the same guy. You know, he's like literally like praising like Jewish upbringings as being like, this is why, like he's almost like answering all his questions that he's saying now. I find that very interesting, but no one's talked about, maybe I'm making this up. I don't think I am, but he said that somewhere.
I don't know. All I know is that hurt people hurt people. You know, everybody knows that. And the truth is a ton of shit has been going on in his life very publicly. And it just feels like he just keeps getting beaten. And then my hunch is like something happened with music execs who were Jewish. And he's like, now that's who I'm going to fight. That's who I'm going to go to war against. Then people got crossed, started fighting with him about that. Then he just kept digging. Like, I just think it's hurt people. And he's probably not in the best mental state right now. And he's just swinging punches left and right. And
against the wall, like you were saying.
Right.
And what else can he do? I'm with
right.
it.
We're both hopeful for you, Kanye.
Both rooting for Kanye West here. You know, we see the wrong, but we are hopeful for the right to come in your way. Kanye, again, if you're watching this, hop on the rise.
He can really help his podcast take off. He can really help season 2 be a lot bigger than season 1.
The redemption of your career, Kanye, and the rise.
I'd be open even. I'd consider at least making Kanye the third co-host too. So Kanye, if you're interested, we would consider. We would consider.
We're not 100%, but we're open to it. If you want to be the third co-host, we can do a couple trial runs, see how the stats do, and we'll talk from there. We'll talk to our people. Okay, yeah. Adam, it's good seeing your face.
Always
the
good
rise.
To see you, man.
Started. Stay tuned.